I'm Shane Nyland, and my co host is Blake Musser. And these stories you're about to hear are from Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Division, about the events surrounding and directly from the mouths of the people who were in Ramadi 2004. All right, let's tell everybody who you are.
All right, Will Nackers. I was a Lance Corporal. I was in Ramadi in 2004.
And you were with Mobile Assault Platoon 3, is that right?
Yeah, I was with MAP 3
Nice.
that time.
Nice. And if I remember correctly, you were, I don't remember whose truck you were in. You remember? I imagine you remember whose truck you were in. Whose truck were you in?
Man, you know what? Prior to coming onto this, like I did listen to a few of the podcasts, and I'm glad I did because it helped me remember some of the stories. And now I want to listen to more because just it's putting together like the big picture of everything, right? Just hearing everyone. But I'll probably say this a lot, but just trying to remember who I was with, what vehicle. Like I can't tell you what truck number we were or who we were with, but obviously I was in. I know you had Pepper on here already.
Uh-huh.
I was in the same Humvee with Pepper. Sergeant Conde, Vigil, Corporal Neil, and Privatar. You know,
nice.
was our free ride. So
nice.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go to the beginning of where it all began. I guess Kuwait. Starting from there, we just put on Generation Kill. I don't know if you've seen that or remember it.
Yeah, I do.
I work with a Navy corpsman right now. He's like, "Have you seen Generation Kill?" I was like, "I don't really remember it." Like, yeah, put it on. Let's see what it's about. And they did a really good job of like capturing what it was like in Kuwait, like prior to going into combat. So it's like this is like spot on of like, you know, what we were dealing with and all the nonsense and all the officers running around telling you like to shave still and like all that, right? So starting in Kuwait, obviously the buildup, right? Like what are we getting into? We're going to Ramadi, talking about the arches of death and going through all that stuff. I don't remember too much about Kuwait other than just really sitting around waiting. And then finally it came time to like get in the big convoy and head all the way up to Ramadi and drive in. So we were part of obviously the driving up to Ramadi. And when we're in that convoy, I know I listened to Kelly's podcast. And by the way, Kelly is like, if I had to pick a guy, it would be John Basilone is Kelly. Like, in my opinion, like that guy is just a stud, like the typical like Marine, like you would envision.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Nick Kelly. But anyways, but as a podcast, he sounds all nice and calm and collected, but he was a son of a bitch. When it came to working with him, anyways. But anyways, yeah, we're going up in that convoy, and obviously we did stop because an IED went off, and for whatever reason, I don't remember if an IED went off or we were trying to wait for an IED to clear because they saw one on the side of the road. But we were just waiting, and again, it was like a really cold night. And I do remember being really cold, and everyone was like trying to bundle up as much as they could, and I was the one that was supposed to be on watch, like up in the turret, like in the high back of the turret, and you know I was putting my head down because it was just so cold. I wasn't necessarily sleeping. Not that you even could sleep in, you know, that cold of weather, but so I put my head down for a bit, maybe nodded off, maybe not, but everyone else was, you know, did asleep, and so I looked back up, and there's nothing in front of us. I'm like, oh shit. So I kicked the driver in the head. I was like, hey, like we gotta go. Like we started moving. And so eventually we caught up to the rest of the convoy, like by the graces of luck. Like I have no idea like how long those guys have been driving or if they got held up a little bit. Um, and for whatever reason, I had a Jessica Simpson song stuck in my head. So, like sitting there waiting. I don't remember exactly what the song it was, but whatever her hit song was in 2004,
Yeah.
uh, that was one I had playing in my head over and over again. But anyways, so I do remember like we get to Ramadi, right? We go through the Arches of Death, and we finally get to our base and get settled in. But you remember in the beginning, I know a lot of this podcast is about like, what we did in Ramadi during that time and how our story kind of got lost. And we took over from the Army National Guard
Mm-hmm.
who was there. And we sent a couple of our guys out to do like patrols. And they went out and they came back with like kind of what the city was like and how it was going. And they're like, yeah, we got into firefights with the National Guard. And they were just like getting back in the trucks and wanting to leave. And the couple of Marines that were with them, they're like, getting out, wanting to assault and all that good stuff. So I found that very interesting. Like, is that just because they were about to leave? Or is that what they were doing this entire time, which could have led up to, the stuff that we had to deal with? So anyways, we took that over from the National Guard, who was supposed to be patrolling and, doing some good work. But, initially they told us, we're there to win hearts and minds, which I forget how long we took the doors off to like show face and like be friendly to the civilians. I don't exactly remember how long that lasted, but I know it didn't last long. Once we realized like, hey, they're not very friendly. We're taking small fire and there are IEDs planted throughout the city, but getting to Ramadi and getting that intel, like obviously we're not going to be doing this. We're going to be assaulting anytime we get in contact, but I don't remember too much. Once we got there, kind of getting settled in, nothing really happened right until April 6th, other than a couple IEDs going off here or there, a little small arms fires going off here and there. But yeah, I don't remember too much happening before that.
Do you kind of remember your impression of the city when you were rolling in, like what you saw? Because I don't know about your convoy, because I think we might have been in two separate convoys, but we were in like the dead middle of the day as we were rolling in.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing you see is that the Arches of Death, and the first building is just riddled with holes and bullet holes falling apart. Like,
Right.
oh, like this is a great city.
Yeah.
And my impression was like, oh shit, like here we go. Like obviously someone's been here before, and this has been a lot of firefights, and as we now know, Ramadi is continuously, what do you call it? They're probably still at war right now, for all we know. But just not a good city, not fun to be in, and it was definitely bigger than I would thought.
Yeah.
The population, like I had no idea. Like afterwards, like hearing how big it was.
Yeah.
300,000 or 100,000.
It was 450,000.
Yeah, to 1,000 Marines. So it's like, yeah, we did pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I remember it was pretty much status quo, I think, until April 6th.
Yeah, there was a couple small things. We did I think one or two cordon missions, and then we had gotten reports of people hitting IEDs. It was not long. Again, I don't remember exactly when your convoy crossed, but I know ours crossed the LOD at March 6th. And then the first major wounding that I remember hearing about was McPherson when that IED went off that blew off his jaw.
Mm-hmm.
And that was March 13th. I mean, that was 1 week later. So it wasn't like a long time. And it wasn't kind of like what you're saying. It wasn't real for me either until it happened to us. but the first IED we hit was on March 18th. And so it didn't take long for it to get serious.
Yeah. Yeah, not even really knowing like what date we got there. So yeah, not very much longer.
Yeah. Well, then you said you kind of remember moving into April. What do you remember from April, I guess?
Yeah, so April 6th obviously being a big day, and maybe you can fill in the gap on this one. But that Gulf Company platoon that got the initial ambush um, by the anti-artillery or anti-air gun.
Yeah, to my understanding, it was a like a 50 cal. I don't know that it was any larger caliber than that, but I believe it was a 50 cal. It may have been larger caliber, but my understanding that it was like a Dishka, which is it's a similar. It's a 12 millimeter, so it's a similar to our 50 cal.
Right. But that's the one that wiped that entire platoon out, right?
Correct.
So I don't know what the time frame is on that one. Um, but maybe you can help me fill it in as we go. Um, but yeah, so we're the quick reaction force for that day, right?
Yep.
And I know you guys have been talking about Gulf Company also sent out their QRF, who also got engaged and took some wounded. Um, but all I remember is, hey, we got a mission, we got Marines hit, we got to go pick them up. And so as we're heading out, we get there, we pull up to where those Marines are, and kind of what Pepper was saying, like that was our first, like we got there to get the wounded Marines, and then we started taking our small arms fire ourselves. He returned fire, and that was pretty much the moment of like, all right, now we're finally in this thing. Um, this is what being shot at feels like. He's returning fire, and I think from that point things just got really confusing as far as when if we actually got the Marines in the Humvees. I don't remember, but I
Hmm.
know we had to break off to basically start engaging the enemy ourselves because we kind of got caught in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Um, so it was, once we realized like we're taking fire ourselves, we had to, give back fire. So as we really got separated quite a bit. Um, Humvees were separated by themselves. I found myself off with our machine gunner or the 249 saw gunner, which
Yeah.
was Venezuela.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, me and him were completely separated and by ourselves. Um,
And you were a dismount on that day. So okay. So you were just with you and Valenzuela were off on foot. Okay.
yeah, so it was like whenever we started taking contact, we kind of did our thing dispersed, but then we got so dispersed to the point where we're like, where is everyone? Like we didn't really have uh, one goal in mind of who's going where and who's doing what. Um, and same thing, that was the first time I saw the one of the insurgents just laying in the road, you know, basically dying and watching him die. So that was the first time I saw that. I was like, all right, um, moving on to the next thing. But yeah, it was kind of very confusing when that thing all kind of kicked off. We all went our separate ways. Um, at some point during that, um, I do remember seeing Sergeant Conde because I know he got shot in the shoulder, a through and through wound. Um, I remember seeing him down the road, like basically in a fight with the corpsman in the back of the Humvee because he was yelling at him like, "Hey, I need to get back to work. Like,
Yeah.
care about me." Like, and Doc was like, "No, no, no. Like, I gotta patch you up. Like, you've been shot. Like, let me help you." And he's just doing his thing, screaming and yelling and wanting to get back in the fight. And so I remember seeing that. And then it was just me and Valenzuela for however how long by ourselves. And we're just kind of going from intersection to intersection, holding the corners, making sure everything's clear. Um, and there was one point when we're at one intersection and, he was firing and I was firing and we were both like, don't shoot like next to our ears. And we almost did that same thing of what you see in the movies. Like we were just killing our ears because he would fire off in my next to my head, and I would fire off next to his head.
Yeah.
Um, but there was at one point, like we figured out, like, hey, these guys literally are busing people in. They're coming in by taxis, by buses, and there was one van coming up the road. To take a little step back, we were the first ones to get ACOGs.
Oh yeah.
Remember the ACOGs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So every platoon only got like 2 ACOGs.
Yeah, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was only 20 for the whole company when we first went over. It was not very many people.
Right. And so when they came to our platoon, like, hey, we're going to be 2. And so how they divvied those out was who had the highest shooting score.
Yep.
So I actually had the highest shooting score. And so I felt a little, confident, being like, oh, man, they're going to give me an ACOG, considering me like the best shooter in the platoon. Like, this is pretty cool. But I think I forgot it that day. Yeah, the one time, like, I could have used it quite a bit. I left it back at the base. But nonetheless, we're all Marines, we're all marksmen, right? And good thing I was a really good shot. But this bus that was coming down the road, obviously it was coming right at us. And obviously I could put 2 and 2 together, and like, this isn't the school bus dropping the kids off to school,
Yeah.
So I fired one shot where I thought would have been the driver sitting, and as soon as I fired that shot, that bus just immediately just veered off onto the side. So I was like, all right, perfect. Whether I just scared him off, hit him, whatever, he stopped coming towards us anyways. And we just continued to do that for a little bit. Again, not sure on time frame, how long this was all taking, but eventually we all kind of regroup, get together, come up with a plan. And at that point I kind of link back up with Sergeant Conde, and that's when we kind of start clearing some homes. And that's one of the things, Sergeant Conde always, taught me, is that clearing homes is one of the most dangerous things that we could do.
By far, yeah.
They're the ones inside hiding, and they have the upper advantage. And
yeah.
But he drilled into us, it doesn't matter who goes in first. If you get shot and go down, just know that everyone else behind you is coming in. So you get shot, go down, next guy gets shots, go down. Eventually someone has to get that guy, whoever's shooting. So that was just drilled in my head of, we need to clear these rooms. You need to go in, and, we'll eliminate the enemy one way or the other. So we started clearing homes. Obviously, it's not the funnest thing to do. That was the first time I saw a triple E. I don't know. Have you heard that term in the medical?
No, tell me.
Extreme ethnic event.
No.
At the time, I wouldn't have called it that, right? I had no idea what it was, but
right.
You remember seeing this, the wives, if their husband died, like, they would completely freak out.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm with you. I'm tracking.
Like punching themselves in the face, like throwing themselves against the wall, like just completely losing it. And I saw that. And so we started clearing one of these houses that we thought people were up on the roof. With Sergeant Conde, we go up, clear the house, clear the roof, nothing. We come back down. And then that was the first time that I got shot at by an RPG. Kind of the same things that you would see like in the movies of Black Hawk Down, right? Like RPG right down the middle of the road, didn't hit anything, completely missed, but whatever, it whizzed by us and hit the building, far, far away. So experienced that. And then at some point, this is where we linked up with, I think, Gulf Company again. And I just remember helping loading, Marine after Marine into the back of the Humvee. And like, I don't know how I ended up on that detail or, why or what we were doing, but I was basically assisting, which I believe now or after the fact was that Gulf Company that completely got wiped out. So I was just helping putting all those into the Humvee to have them evacuated. And again, that was like seeing Marines tossing grenades over walls at the same time, still being engaged in firefights. But that is really about it as far as like what I remember about that day.
When you guys were clearing houses, did you catch any contact in the houses, or was it mostly like you came in, there was nothing there, you went to the rooftops, that was it?
Yeah, no, we luckily we never, got engaged, while clearing houses. Even the entirety that I was there, we never like experienced that. So yeah, we lucked out that way.
Yeah, I mean that is fortunate. I didn't clear a lot of houses. I did catch a little contact in a house, but it same. I'm glad that was not an everyday thing by far. It is not a pleasant feeling. Uh, so with what you were talking about with loading all those Marines, I think the high back that got hit with the dish code, I think that was Echo Company. I don't think
Oh
that was Golf, or was it Golf?
no, you're right. It was Echo Company.
Yeah. So to my understanding, the Golf Company platoon that was pinned down, I mean, there's a couple of KI and there were several very seriously wounded. Um, but you had, if I remember, and again, I don't know, I'm looking at my notes, but I didn't write down detailed notes. The Golf Company QRF was on its way from the east, and you guys came in from the west. You just happened to make it through to Easy Street, and the guys coming from the east got hemmed up near Saddam's mosque. They got into another firefight and basically relieved some of the pressure off the guys that were pinned down in the two different houses. So that tracks as far as that goes. Do you know how much? Just curious, generally. Do you like? Do you have anything in your mind of how much ground you covered? Was it like a couple of blocks?
Eventually, I think once we got all the Marines loaded and accounted for, that's when we started bounding from intersection to intersection.
Okay.
Because I remember listening to Kelly's podcast. Um, I was getting very mad because he would bump up to the next intersection that we haven't been to, and he would clear it with the Mark 19, and I'm just on foot, like running to get to the next intersection.
Yeah.
And by the time I got there, right, huffing and puffing, he'd be like, "It's clear." I'm like, "Dang it!" And he'd move up to the next one, same thing, clear. I'm like, "Kelly, like, save some, man. Like leave some for the rest of us, man."
That's funny.
But yeah, we covered quite a bit of ground that way. I remember after that, but yeah, prior to that, not really sure, how much we moved around.
Yeah. And you mention it kind of like peripherally, but it's weird how you get these like time effects where like it feels like 20 minutes. You look down at your watch, it's been hours. Or on the flip side, you feel like it's been hours and you're like, oh, actually, no, we've only been doing this for 40 minutes or whatever. Like you have no idea. Like it all just completely blurs together. Even when you're in the moment, it's a very strange feeling as far as that goes.
Yeah, it truly is.
Well, I know you guys started to evacuate the wounded, the guys that you picked up. There were several pretty serious casualties, and at some point, the army came out and joined you and helped evac some wounded and disperse some ammo. Do you remember doing any of those evacs at all, or do you remember anything for the rest of the day? Because I think I am piecing this together because I wasn't there, right? I was map 2, not map 3.
Mm-hmm.
But from what other folks have said, you guys evac'd some folks, and then you came back out to the same area.
Yeah, that like I do not remember at all.
No.
And
Well, then, what do you remember?
I think maybe I was blessed with like severely just forgetting things that were traumatic.
I mean, it's also 20 years later.
Yeah,
So,
that's part of it. But even like after, the year after, I feel like I'm recalling the same stuff that I would have back then. But
yeah.
but no, yeah, I do remember like the Amtrak's coming in and loading a few more in there. And to be honest, I don't even know. Like, there's zero recollection of how we got back to base,
Yeah.
whose Humvee I was in. I feel like we got so scattered. I was surprised, like our entire platoon like showed back up because we were so separated and engaging in different firefights.
Yeah.
So,
Well, do you remember getting back that night?
not at all.
Wait.
Maybe it was a sleep deprivation too. Like who knows?
Well, that is also probably true. All right. Well, then it kicked right back off the next day. Anything that stands out from the 7th?
No, I do remember, going back out and not being as fierce of fighting, but still just a little bit. Um, and I do like Kelly and um, Pepper talked about it, and maybe it was the 7th. I feel like it was just a random day, but um, when we were driving and we took contact left the day that um, Cummings got shot,
Mm-hmm.
but we took contact left and they started engaging, and I sat to the left of Pepper in the high back Humvee in the front. And so as he turned the 50 cal to start firing, I was basically like, I went to go return fire as well with the M16, but it was like, as soon as he started firing, like there was no point in me firing. And then all I remember being told by the machine gunners is like the 50 cal is so powerful that if you're like just past the barrel, it's going to rip your arm off. Like, just really powerful weapon, and that's all I remember people telling me about it. And so this whole time he's firing like directly over my head, and I'm like yelling at him like, Pepper, like stop shooting, like I want to get out of this thing. I'm like punching him in the leg of like, dude, let me out, like I don't want my freaking head blown off. But obviously he can't, he's laying down suppressive fire and he probably doesn't hear me at all. But finally he stops shooting for whatever reason, the reload or whatever. But I get out of the Humvee, kind of returning fire. I do my little slick tactical reload to try and save ammo. Have a full magazine with me, and we're sitting on the berm on the other side of the street. And then finally, we're like, all right, let's go move towards these buildings or the houses that we were being shot from. And I remember there was a cow out front of all these homes, and everyone, for whatever reason, was shooting the cow as well. The cow was not going down. Like this thing was a beast, but it had so many holes in it. It was pretty impressive. But the one house that we were specifically all targeting, um, that was the house that we were going to clear first because it was the closest, and obviously the progression of clearing homes. So we finally get a plan together. We start heading across the road. We get to this house. I forget at what point Cummings got shot. If it was, I believe it was after we cleared this house, but we go in, we clear the house. We move in, we check the upstairs. We come back down, and there was only one more room to clear in the far corner. And I was the first one through this door. And I opened up the door, and it's a family of just women and children. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, for one, I didn't shoot them, but how they didn't get shot with being riddled by 50 cals, Mark 19s. And I remember telling them, I'm like, you have no idea how lucky you are. And I just obviously took off, and then we started, doing whatever we needed to next. But that was definitely something that stuck in my head that I saw. And then I think at that point, I think Cummings must have gotten shot because then we pulled back versus continuing to advance to find whoever was going after us. So I do remember someone said when Cummings got shot, he fell onto the barrel of the saw.
Oh.
So it had dirt jammed in the barrel. And so I forget who got to him first, but they went to pick it up to go fire it. But they saw all the dirt jammed in the barrel, so they didn't fire it and they couldn't use it. But knowing now that we're, in the medical field, that Cummings having basically a sucking chest wound, obviously he needed some quick medical attention.
Yeah.
Um,
And since you were there, and now that you're bringing it up, and I didn't think to ask, at least a couple people have mentioned this. Did you guys render immediate medical aid, or did you guys just grab and run and take Cummings to combat out, or not to combat outpost, to Junction City to the medical?
no, we got him back to the Humvee to a corpsman for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know which corpsman tended to him,
Yeah.
but I would imagine he got a chest seal dressing of some sort.
I would imagine he did. Yeah. I'll pick their brain whenever I talk to him if I ever get a chance to, but I was just curious. I never really did think about that.
Yeah. But yeah, however long it took for Cummings to get back, the only thing he talked about that scared me to death was he said they, stuck a tube in his penis, basically the catheter, right? He's like, that was the most painful thing. It was way worse than getting shot. I'm like, oh my God, dude, that sounds horrible. Like, I don't want to get hurt or anything. Just, I don't want them shoving tubes in my penis. You know what I mean? Like, as a stupid young Marine, like, just like the thoughts of why you don't want to get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He was not out long, right? He was, I mean, I remember thinking he was gone. Like we weren't going to see him again. Like he was going to the States. We'd catch him later. And then it seemed like a week or 2 weeks or not long. I don't know. He was back pretty fast. 4 weeks, maybe.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you the time frame on that, but it was, like you said, we didn't think he was coming back. Like, you get shot in the chest. Like,
yeah,
that should be a ticket home. But yeah, he came back.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
It didn't slow him down much. I mean, I remember seeing him in the gun and shit like that. He seemed like he was doing all right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it really didn't affect him much. It's amazing.
So, again, I don't know the timeline for you guys for the 7th necessarily, but I mean, what I know from my notes is you guys were in some fighting basically near like the soccer fields again down in the south of the city. And then that's when you were on your way back is when you took contact, and then you guys were assaulting through, and that's when Cummings got shot. And then rather than push through, like you said, was there anything after that, or was that the end of it?
Yeah, I think that was the end of it. We think we pretty much took Cummings back and reset for the next day.
Okay. Anything stand out after that?
No, I think I know we went back out, looking for, more insurgents and clearing out quite a bit of the homes. Just as we were patrolling, I had a very poor mindset of I wasn't a very good listener or didn't follow directions very well because I just didn't, care. Just a young guy or whatever. But as we're clearing these homes, it's going through, it's like open land to small houses to a little group of houses. At some point, we took some fire and we were trying to get to these guys, and we ended up on top of a roof, and we saw them, continue to run away. But as we continue to patrol, like, I was messing around, right? Like, not paying attention. And again, I find myself, all alone. I'm like, where did everyone go? Like, I could have swore I stopped for like a minute. And I turned around and like there's 0 Marines around. I'm like, okay, that's not good. So quickly, obviously, turn around the other way and catch back up to everyone. But I just definitely remember that moment of, crapping by myself again. Like, so we catch back up, and I did have my ACOG this time. But these guys that we were chasing, and they're finally running across the field, going towards like a wooded area. And for whatever reason, I know I had this guy in my sights. And if anyone knows the ACOG, it has, different distances inside of the scope. But I had this guy in the very last, distance marker inside the ACOG. And I'm like, does anyone, like, should I shoot this guy? Like, is he bad? Like, what's going on? For whatever reason, I chose not to pull the trigger on that one. But that was something that stuck out that I still remember from that time frame.
My guess is that you didn't see any weapons or anything, so you weren't real sure. So you're just kind of like waiting to see, or
Yeah, I think he probably had dropped everything that he had at that point,
yeah,
and it's
that's
just the moral decision of I know this is a bad guy,
right.
and he's running away from us. But
Yeah, it's weird. It, they had the better camouflage than we did, obviously, right? You could just drop your shit and run off into the distance and do whatever the fuck you want. Put on a different. Some of them even would change headgear, or they'd change clothes or whatever, or and just completely blend in.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And you don't remember the Apaches and Hueys that day on the 6th?
so I don't remember him on the 6th. I do remember him coming on the 10th. That was the only day I remember, and the only day because I've seen some pictures and they're also annotated April 10th. Did you guys you guys had helicopters somewhere on the 6th, 7th?
That's probably just a lapse in memory on my part.
Well, so it was
I
interesting on
could
the
have
10th.
swore like any time that we got into a firefight, those things were over our heads.
No. God,
no.
I fucking
No.
wish that was true. Jesus.
Yeah, that would have been great.
No, there was maybe 3 times that helicopters were actually firing in the city, and one of them was April 10th. The other one was I don't remember the date, but and I can look in my notes, but it's when Map One got in a firefight down at the reviewing stands, and then one other random day. But mostly no, mostly air was not cleared hot to do anything in this city.
Well, yeah, that's crazy. Because in my head, they were there every day.
Well, that's good. That's good. And maybe you were there for the for a couple of the times when they were there. On the 10th specifically, which might be clear in your mind, you guys might have been closer to the area where they were firing by the river. Because my understanding is they were firing by the river, but they also cleared a few rooftops from contact that happened. And the 10th was the first, what we called the first bug hunt. That was the big cordon search and kind of the end of supposed to be the end of the Battle of Ramadi as far as that goes.
Right.
I don't know. Do you remember anything much about that? About what you guys were doing?
The 10th? No,
No.
not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, we were on an outer cordon element, so I don't have a good recollection of what everybody else was doing. And so I don't know. I just remember them driving up and down the street with the speakers playing music and calling everybody out to fight. And then about an hour or two into it, people did come out to fight, and it became a big thing.
Right.
Well, what pops up next to you?
Yeah, other than that, like I don't remember what we did from the 10th up into July 1st, which obviously was when Sergeant Conde got killed.
Sure.
So that was a big part of my existence, obviously, in Map 3, being his platoon. But that day, that morning, we got a mission, observation post. Obviously, that was most of what we did, I think. So that was one of our missions that morning. We're going to go out into observation post, hang out somewhere in the middle of the city, watch the intersection, hopefully catch some bad guys planting some bombs. So we get out to where we need to. We set up. I dismount. I get to the intersection, the sector that I'm supposed to hold and observe. And I don't know if I was just looking the other way or maybe could have nodded off. Who knows? But I remember looking back the other direction, and there's this cow literally like 6 inches in front of my face, just staring at me. I'm like, how did this cow get in front of me? And I didn't even hear him.
Nice.
So I must have nodded off at some point, but
One of those ninja cows.
right. So I was like, that was just a weird, whatever. Like, all right, we didn't find any bad guys, but this cow snuck up on me. Like, that's not good. So we get back in the Humvees and we're done, right? We're supposed to head back. And for whatever reason, we didn't have the CO out with us that day. And he wanted to go patrol all the way to the Arches of Death, and then go back to the Army base. where we would get our chow and everything. So we get all the way to the Arches of Death. We turn back around and we're headed back to base. And so now I'm just thinking about, what kind of omelet I'm going to get at the Army base, right? And so as I'm thinking about that, the next thing I know, I'm waking up from being unconscious. And my first thought was like, oh, well, that's an IED, right? Like that feels like, wasn't too bad. I don't feel anything, no pain. I remember Corporal Vigil in the back, is anyone hurt? What's going on? And I was like, yeah, I feel something in my leg. And he's like, I don't care, like get out and post security. And at that point, Sergeant Conde would have been screaming, yelling, would have gotten out of the Humvee, ready to fight whoever was going to assault us next. But obviously he wasn't saying anything. So we all kind of subconsciously knew, like, he was hurt pretty bad. And so I get out to post security. I go up to the front of the Humvee, to hold the sector as we wait for the corpsman to come up to attend to Sergeant Conde. And, I remember specifically when we were driving that morning, like we were really far spread apart, like way more than usual. And so we were at the second Humvee in the patrol, and the Humvee in front of us was really far ahead. And so by the time I got out, held security, I was there for quite a while, minutes. But finally, Corporal Munoz comes down from the Humvee that was in front of us. He's like, hey, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I was hit in the leg. Whatever, like didn't care. They're telling Sergeant Conde. And he goes to take a look at my leg, and he lifts up, my pant leg, and his fingers kind of like fall into my gaping wound from getting hit from shrapnel. And he's like, gross, dude, like you're fucking hurt pretty bad, like you need to go see a corpsman. And I was like, okay. So I just being a last corporal, like whatever.
Stop being gross, boot.
What's funny is nobody knowing Eunice, like I can see him being like, I can see him saying that. That's exactly what. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Right. So yeah. So I'm like, okay. So I go run over to where the next dock was, in the other Humvee, and I get over there, and Gordon was in the machine gun turret in that Humvee, and the doc starts patching me up, right, putting on the trauma dressings, and Gordon's up there hackling me like, hey, you freaking pussy, like, stop being crying, whining, or whatever. Like, I don't think I was crying or complaining about anything, but just typical Marines, like trying to, make you tougher or whatever. I'm like, shut up, Gordon. Like, you don't understand. But the doc, he throws the pressure bandage on, right, on my leg, and they get Sergeant Conde packaged up. And I'm not sure how many Humvees took off, but we were pretty close to the outpost at that point.
Yeah.
Off the main road. And so however many Humvees take myself and Sergeant Conde, and we get to the outpost, and, they have the medical staff there waiting for us. And I specifically remember one of the nurses or whoever it was, they're like, oh, you're not hurt that bad. Like, you'll be back in a couple of days or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, we all want to stay there and continue to fight. But anyways, they packaged me up a little bit more, and they put me and Sergeant Conde into one of the helicopters, and we take off from there. And I remember quickly after we took off, we landed, they took Sergeant Conde out, and then we took off again. And at that point, I was like, obviously, he passed away. I don't know why they would have done that, or if there was a different area for, KIAs versus wounded. But they didn't take me. I end up in Baghdad, and I get into the surgery room in Baghdad, and one of the corpsmen or nurses, the first guy I see him, and all I can remember, is from what Cummings had told me about this tube in your penis, right? So the first thing the first thing I asked the doc was, "Hey man, can I just go to the bathroom before you stick anything into my dick?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. Like, what are you talking about?" Like, oh, thank you. But anyways, then they put me in surgery. They knocked me out. They removed the 2 pieces of shrapnel, one in my thigh, like underneath my leg, and then there was another piece in my knee. They took those out, and when I came to, I remember the doc came in, and he had the shrapnel and a little pea cup. He's like, "Here you go. We took this out of your leg." I was like, "All right, thanks." And then from there, it was several trips of airplanes and going back. But they put me in a Black Hawk to fly to another Air Force base. And they put me on like the top shelf of this Black Hawk. And then as they were lifting me up in the stretcher, like I was just getting closer and closer to the rotor. I'm like, are these guys like trying to kill me? Literally trying to press my head as hard as I could against the stretcher so I don't hit the rotor. But they put me in the Black Hawk. They take me to an Air Force base, and there I'm just kind of chilling out in whatever medical room they have in the tent. And I remember they started getting mortared, and everyone like is getting under the tables, like getting off the beds, like hiding. And I'm literally just laying in bed still. I'm like, "What are you guys doing?" And they're like, "You need to get off your bed, like get underneath." I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I'm pretty good. Like, I don't think you guys are going to get hit. And if you are, it's just unfortunate. Like, there's no rhyme or reason or who gets picked. Like, you could be undercover under the bed. Like, it doesn't matter." I remember that. Just remember the Air Force, right? Being, weak softies sitting on base all the time.
This is on the back of getting shelled, basically. I mean, like, we took some kind of incoming like every other day for the last like 5 months.
Yeah, exactly. And then at that point, then they loaded me up onto one of those medical C-130s, where again, like you guys probably never saw it, but it was just how we flew over in a C-130, but this time it's just stretcher from wall to ceiling, on both sides, and just it's completely loaded with wounded.
So how much time has passed at this point? Like, is this moving into the next day, or are we talking?
Yeah, I want to say it was like a day in Baghdad, and then maybe another day at this Air Force base.
Okay.
And I was on the C-130 flying to Germany.
Oh wow.
Germany,
pretty quick. Okay.
Yeah, Germany was another place for our wounded to kind of get stabilized. But I ended up in Germany, stayed there for 3 days. And then that's when I finally actually looked at my leg. Like, this entire time, I never looked at my leg. And I looked at it. One of the nurses was changed in a bandage or whatever. And then that's when the pain actually set in.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit. Like, now it's painful and like I feel it. Because I actually saw it, right? Like, I put 2 and 2 together, like what it looks like and how it feels. But yeah, so then hanging out in Germany for a couple of days, and then again another C-130, and they flew us to the East Coast and then to Camp Pendleton, where I ended up in the hospital at Camp Pendleton. But one of the C-130s, I remember I was loaded up, and they're loading more people onto the airplane, and there's this guy they put right next to me, and I recognize his voice, and he's like screaming and yelling and crying and all this stuff. I'm like asking for pain meds or whatever it is, like, or to adjust something. And I'm like, no way, dude, that's Anderson, from School of Infantry. And I'm like, Anderson, is that you? He's like, who is that? I'm like, it's Nackers, man. Like, what happened to you? And he just got hit by a mortar, standing on base, and he was all jacked up or anything. But I recognized that squealy little voice from anywhere. But it's insane, like how, all those small things, come together from someone you went to School of Infantry with, got sent to a completely different unit, and now you're all loaded up on the same, C-130 headed home. It was pretty crazy.
If you like what you've heard, this is a multi-part episode. Make sure you listen to the rest of the story.